Okay, let's talk about Congress and let's talk about firearms for a moment. Yesterday, Kentucky Congressman Thomas Massie introduced something called the National Constitutional Carry Act to protect Americans' gun rights. What this act would do, it would prohibit any statute, ordinance, regulation, custom, or usage of a state or a political subdivision of a state that criminalizes, penalizes, or otherwise indirectly dissuades the carrying of firearms, including by imposing a financial or other barrier to entry, in public by any resident or non resident who is a United States citizen or otherwise eligible to possess firearms under state and federal law. Those laws shall have no force or effect. What that actually means, this would become a nationwide standard whereby if you purchase a firearm, a handgun, or a long gun, a rifle, and you pass the background check, you're allowed to carry that gun in public with no other restrictions of any kind. No permits, no licenses, no classes, no training, no psych eval, nothing. If you qualify under state and federal law to possess a firearm, meaning if you pass a background check, then you're allowed to carry those weapons in public. This has been kind of a wet dream for gun rights activists for a very long time. And it's interesting because here's where we're going to run into. I would expect this to pass the House of Representatives. Hell, I wouldn't be entirely surprised if there were a few Democrats who voted for it. But we're going to run into the Senate. There's a 53-47 split in the Senate. Normally, you got to have 60 votes to pass any measure that does not involve budgets, which you can do those through reconciliations with a simple majority. It'll be interesting to see if this piece of legislation can get 60 votes in the Senate. I doubt that it would get 7 Democrats in the Senate. And then even more interesting, it will be, are Republicans in the Senate going to keep the filibuster? Are they going to keep that 60 vote requirement? So we'll see what happens with that. But if this passes the House, if it passes the Senate and Trump signs it into law, like I live in California and I'm a gun owner. I have 6 firearms, 2 handguns, 2 rifles, 2 shotguns. And the regulations on firearms in California are a lot. I'll put it that way. And as far as the carry provision, when I lived in San Francisco, I mean, I live just north of San Francisco now, but I lived in San Francisco for 22 years. It was effectively impossible to get a concealed carry permit in San Francisco. Those were handled by the sheriff's department, and they had requirements that you had to demonstrate an actual, tangible threat to your life from a specific individual or group in order to qualify for a carry permit in San Francisco. And over a 20-year period of time, I think the city and county of San Francisco had approved 15 carry permits during that entire time. The Bruen decision from the Supreme Court a couple of years ago did away with that. And they had to dramatically loosen the restrictions for that, for being able to qualify. But San Francisco you were still mandated to take a firearms training course, and you had to go to a gun range with a police officer who would put you through like a qualification test with your weapon that you wanted to carry in public. If you had a revolver and a 9mm that's fed with a magazine, you would have to do all of that twice, once for each firearm. And I live in Marin County now, and the restrictions are a little bit less up here, but not by much. And all of that would go away. Every bit of that would go away because I purchased both of those handguns legally, and both of my rifles and both of my shotguns. And under this kind of legislative structure, by qualifying to purchase them and passing the background check, I would therefore be legally permitted to carry those weapons in public. And, one of the things that I like about California is we have protests at our state house and nobody's carrying guns. You don't have a bunch of fucking rednecks parading around in their full kit that they ordered off of Amazon with their tactical helmet and their little Kevlar gloves with their AR-15 strapped across their chest. This legislation would change that. You could carry those guns anywhere you wanted to go, pretty much. And same with handguns. So I will keep an eye on this legislation and see if it passes. I expect it to pass the House. It's going to have a much more uphill battle in the Senate if John Thune and Senate Republicans decide that they're going to keep the filibuster.